Hey guys, welcome back.
Hello,
We
hello.
are on to our sixth division, Corstian. Crazy that we're almost done with the series heading into August. It's kind of that lull period still where basketball and football is not really going on, and we're looking
Mm-hmm.
forward to tennis, golf, and like the WNBA. So,
Yes,
and
sir.
no slight to WNBA. I think the amount of players that have come into the league recently have been just made it so much fun to watch.
Mm-hmm.
And summer league and stuff like that. But late July and August for sports fans is kind of weird. That weird
Mm-hmm.
period where you start to have people in training camps and whatnot. But a lot of exciting topics. Not for me. I woke up to a text from Corsian Wilson telling me that Najee Harris, a guy that I just traded for from his team, mind you, um, got into an accident with his eye, and I had drafted Quinshawn Judkins, the second overall pick, rather than Travis Hunter, because I didn't have a secondary back behind Joe Mixon in my league. It's all reserve players. So I literally don't have a starter. Judkins is um, caught himself in a bad situation legally,
Yeah.
and Najee. And for me, because this is so important in my life, my dynasty team is screwed. So
Yeah.
before the season even starts, I'm like quickly trying to pivot and um, come to some options. But before we get any further, how are you? How was your weekend?
It's pretty chill. Sunday went to Chicago to the beach a little bit. It was just kind of chill weekend, I guess. I don't know, nothing too crazy, but yeah.
Best time to be in Chicago, baby.
Yes,
Um,
sir.
yeah, alrighty. Okay, so um, we have a lot to talk about. AFC East is on the docket today. Um, remember at this time last year, we are like, oh, Rodgers is coming back. The Jets can make this interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Super high on the Jets. And then the Bills traded away Stephon Diggs. They're weaker offensively in theory. It all didn't
Mm-hmm.
matter. The Bills like kind of ran away with it. Miami didn't play a role. New York didn't play a role. New England was a dumpster fire. Nothing
Yeah.
Mayo could have done about that. But like, in my opinion, it's still the Bills' division to lose until teams prove otherwise. What are you making of this division as a whole before we unwrap it?
Yeah. Um. Yeah, I feel like it still is the Bills' division to lose. I mean, it's just the Josh Allen effect. Like, Josh Allen, or maybe coaching too a little bit, but like you put pretty much any one of these like rosters minus quarterback into the Bills' shoes, and I think it's still the Bills' division, like more often than not, you know. Um, Potentially some of these other teams may have a better overall supporting cast, but just Josh Allen is good enough to win this division, I think. And so it really, yeah, like you said, it's theirs to lose.
Yeah. Well, speaking of which, we'll start off with the Bills. Coming off a heartbreaking AFC Championship loss to the Chiefs again. It's seemingly that kryptonite they cannot overcome right now. Um, I have them kind of at the same ceiling where I don't think no matter their schedule, like I still have them at like anywhere from 11 to 14 wins. I think you could chalk that up to the Bills. It doesn't matter how they get there. They're one of those teams that are one of the best in the league. And it's just a shame that Kansas City just comes in their way every single time. They'll beat them in the regular season, but in the playoffs, it will be they're just a juggernaut. So until further proof otherwise, they gotta really prepare for Kansas City because at some point they're gonna face them in the playoffs. But that's just my thoughts looking at the schedule. I have a couple key players I would watch out, but before I get any further, how are you kind of looking at this team?
Um, yeah, I think with the Bills, obviously, like they have, like where they have in the past had their really strong players, it's continued to stay strong. You know, like obviously Josh Allen's there, James Cook, huge fan of. I love Matt Milano. Ed Oliver's a good player. I like Christian Benford. You know, so they have like pieces top to bottom. um, the one concern though, one's concern for this team that I've thought of just looking at the roster today was they last season's draft, at least going into this year, doesn't seem as strong as I think they really needed it to be to contend against some of the premier AFC teams this season. Because I mean, for people, obviously, I have the roster pulled up here, but you have really only Keon Coleman as the only second-year player slated to be a starter going into this season. And even then, he's wide receiver number 2 behind Khalil Shakir. Then other notable names is like Ray Davis behind James Cook. You got a couple like O-linemen who are sitting behind players who are already, starters. You got Cole Bishop as a second string, but then you have 4 players on this list who are third string or worse from the previous year's draft year. Like, you got to hit on more guys than that. Hopefully they do a little bit better this year. They have a lot of picks. So hopefully, you get a stud with Maxwell Hairston. But then so far, obviously we'll see how training camp goes, but you got a couple guys listed to be third stringers and then a lot of guys who are supposed to be backups going into this season. So just a lot of expectation for these young guys to step up so that they can continue not wasting Josh Allen's prime pretty much.
Well, I think you're being a little bit too hard when you're looking at, like, they had Quinton Jefferson, Jordan Phillips, Von Miller previously on the roster, a lot of those positions you're talking about. So when you lose that many guys, you're like, oh, okay, how are they going to fill the gaps? Because they had a very deep rotation of D linemen before those rookies came into the fold, right? And I think they got them anticipating that they would lose 3 or 4 of these guys in free agency, which ended up happening. But I think with Keon Coleman and Ray Davis, you kind of expected them to step up a lot more often. So hopefully this season that kind of shows it, especially when you let go of Amari Cooper, Stephon Diggs over the past couple of years. That's a lot of talent walking out the door. There's a couple key players in mind for me that are veterans that did take a step back. Some out of their control, like Dalton Kincaid. He was a pretty dominant effect before he got injured in like week 10 or week 11. But like once that injury happened, he was not the same player. And just some of the, like, he is going to be the key playmaker on this offense. I still believe in him from his rookie season. And he was put in a tough situation against Kansas City to catch that ball on 4th down. But he's going to be the guy in those go-to situations. And especially with the Bills trying to make a 5th-year option like decision on Dawson Knox, it's on Kincaid to kind of like make that decision easier and like kind of really step up when you're looking to the fold. Another player I would look at, Ed Oliver. Ed Oliver did not have a good season as in years past, run defending and commanding double teams. He does a lot that's not quantified as stats to support other players, but they're going to need him to get back to being like a run stuffer and commanding double teams in order for like Joey Bosa, Greg Rousseau, AJ Epinesa to like get home and win their one-on-one matchups. So he's kind of the difference maker, and those 2 players in particular gotta reward the Bills for the amount of investment they put in those players. I think for me, my concerns lie into like the back end because you lose your like veteran safeties over the past 2 years. Micah Hyde this season, that's going to be an issue for me. And like, can the secondary remain consistent? Is it either going to be Hairston or White that wins the job? My gut says White just because he has a lot of experience being on this team. But like, he's an older player now, and you're looking for Hairston to kind of take that jump with the players you mentioned from last year's class. Kind of disappointing, but just adding some context there.
Yeah. And so, like I said, like my prediction for them still being like a 12 to 15 win team, like they will be strong. Undoubtedly with just the fact that you have Josh Allen on this team, but like you said, they lost a lot of players, and then you're trying to replace that depth. But yeah, you're just really needing to have your guys just really hit in these draft classes. I think, because if you look at a more like a team that's trying to rebuild right now, having like a list of decent starters, but then only really hitting on like 1 or 2 picks a year, really makes it hard to develop a good team. Even just having like these good picks being future depth picks for our depth players, to be in like a rotation of some sort. Like you really need some of these picks to like show up better. I mean, I'm a fan of Ray Davis, and so like sure, I said that he's like a backup guy. Obviously, he's backup to James Cook, which is good. So I mean, I like that 1-2 punch there. But yeah, and then I just look at the free agents that they bring in too. I mean, like the secondary, I think will be a strong point of their defense going into this season. But I mean, like Joey Bosa is good, but then you look at the offensive side where you bring in Josh Palmer, Elijah Moore, Laviska Shenault, and I'm like, they're all right guys, but like I feel like none of these. I mean, even like Khalil Shakir and Keon Coleman, they're like all right wide receivers. I think they're good, but nothing like outside of Josh Allen, nothing really scares me on this offense. I mean, I guess James Cook is good, but like Josh Allen really is the hero of this offense, and without him, I think this team, like I think you put any other quarterbacks in this division on the Bills, and this team drops to like sub 10 wins.
I think it's the same argument. Like it's the same concern people have with the 49ers. If they didn't hit on Brock Purdy, the way their draft picks and decisions, like they got a haul for Trubisky. But like the way they've drafted since then has not been great. And like if they didn't hit on Purdy, where would they be right now? Like that's your fear with the Bills. You have this super weapon at quarterback. You don't want to waste it. What I will say is this: there's a lot of pressure on Keon Coleman, and I think with the way this roster is headed, he's kind of like the next like wide receiver 1A. If he doesn't become that, you're guaranteeing next season you're looking at a top tier wide receiver. Because there's no way the Bengals can build their roster with like paying T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, and Joe Burrow the absurd amounts they're paying, and then trying to figure out a deal with Hendrickson right now. Like that's insane. Or was it Sam Hubbard? I think it's Hendrickson. But you're looking at all these receiver having classes like coming up, and like how teams are unable to afford it because you could only allocate so many award years. It's I would be, if I'm the Bills, I would really analyze this Keon the guy, because like you mentioned, a lot of these guys are great supplementary players, but how much is that worth in the offense? If Kincaid becomes the next Kelsey, I think it's null and void, because the Chiefs have, you've seen how the Chiefs have structured their offense despite not having the receiver gap. So there's one thing the Bills have going for them. It's that the Chiefs has shown it hasn't been a barrier. But I think to maximize the player Josh Allen is, I agree. That's a weak spot right now.
Yeah, and I think part of them like shying away from that was just like their lack of success with Stephon Diggs. Yeah, I mean, obviously they're a successful team. They made it to like the AFC conference finals or whatever every year with Stephon Diggs, but like just them not getting over the hump. You're thinking like, oh, maybe like Stephon Diggs isn't like, the wide receiver one isn't like the key to bump us forward. But then it's like you're looking at here and you're like, well, it would be really nice if they had a wide receiver one to kind of just like establish the offense. It's a tricky thing because, like, again, I hope Dalton Kincaid can become a Kelsey caliber player, but I think we're still maybe like a year or two away from like, seeing him like really reach his full potential. And so it's like up until then, are you just like rolling with this? And like another thought, it's like, I mean, I'm a huge fan of the Maxwell Hairston pick, but I think of like I don't even know what I'd prefer, but like how do you think about, like, would you rather have Maxwell Hairston here, or would you rather have like the likes of Luther Burden or like Jaden Higgins taken at the back end of the first round, or maybe you trade back into the early second? And like, I mean, I think you can't go wrong with Hairston.
I mean, knowing the offensive guy, I would go Burden.
Right, so
Burden, I think it would be a great play. But the problem with Burden is like now he and Shakir are like battling for the ideal spots, right? So that might not be the best fit. Maybe like an outside flanker spot is where I would target. So maybe like
Gabe Davis.
I mean, Andre Johnson. Why not? Just call the streets. 47-year-old lying up at wide receiver. I don't know how old Andre Johnson is, but like trade for Brandon Ayuk, make something like get an outside guy. Like I totally get the logic there. My concern, I guess, is you decide to make a big 1-year investment on Joey Bosa. You could have used that on a top tier wide receiver. Maybe a Chris Godwin, like if Tampa Bay couldn't afford it. And you decide to do it on Joey Bosa.
Mm-hmm.
Joey Bosa is a fantastic defensive end, but the past 3 seasons, he's only played in like 55% of the Chargers games.
Mm-hmm.
And if he's not on the field, you're relying on AJ Epinesa and Greg Rousseau to be like the primary pass rushers. And they're great players, but they haven't lived up to the billing yet that the Bills need. And the last time they made a move like this is for Von Miller. So what kind of Bosa are we going to get? He already got injured with a calf injury this offseason. And he's coming back from that. But like, he's probably the one difference maker that's going to make or break how much more this defense can grow from already being an impressive one.
Yeah. Yeah, and then I mean, like a minor struggle of this pass rush situation for the Bills here, as I think just like their draft picks, I don't think have quite hit in the pass rush department. I mean, like Greg Rousseau, he's been decent enough. I mean, he had 8 sacks last season, but then I think his rookie year, he had just like 3. Year 2, he had 8. Year 2, he had 8. Year 3, he had 5. Year 4, he's at 8. And so it's like he's been an all right, like secondary pass rusher for like an elite team, you know, but he isn't really a prime time pass rush guy. Von Miller, in his limited time last season, he still put up 6 sacks. And so it's like you're in this cycle of like, we struggle with pass rush, and they just haven't been able to hit their guy or get their guy to be that pass rusher. And so it's like, hopefully, you know, you're trying to fill that hole with Joey Bosa, but then it's like it's hard to acquire good pass rushers in this league. I mean,
yeah,
just
everybody wants
that. Like, teams don't want to give up pass rushers, especially to elite teams in the league. And so it's like you look at the Chiefs, and you know they drafted George Karlaftis. He's been a superstar. They just inked him to a huge deal, and so no, they're set at pass rush. And like the other guys, I mean, like Chris Jones is there. Obviously, he's phenomenal. But it's like you can then afford to have those secondary caliber pass rushers like a Greg Rousseau who can casually put up like, you know, 7-8 sacks on the other side, and that'll be huge impact. But like, he is your guy right now. I mean, Ed Oliver, he's good too, but like Rousseau is supposed to be your guy, and he doesn't play like the guy, especially for a Super Bowl contending team, which I think hurts them. And which goes back to my whole, I think you kind of touched that too, but like with the whole, they really need us to be better with their draft picks, because like, again, this season, there's really 2 guys, Ray Davis and Keon Coleman, who I think really have any potential going into this season as second-year players for the Bills, which is not a good hit rate, you know, because they had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 picks last season in the draft. Obviously, late-round picks, you don't expect them all to hit, but still, 2 out of 10 picks being like guys you can work with, and even those 2 aren't bona fide, surefire things right now. It's a bit of a concern, at least to me, for maybe not this year, but next year Bills.
Yeah, I mean, the guy that invested in TJ Sanders, like, I know I get it, he's a rookie, but like, you're hoping like as this thing like narrows down, like he is ready to slot in for Daquan Jones or Ed Oliver should something happen. So it's a valid concern. I think a lot of these, like, top the roster, they're set. They're right where they need to be. They just need to win on the margins against the Chiefs in particular. And until that happens, they have to worry about these future picks and stuff like that. So overall, I know it sounded really harsh on specific positions, but this team is in a really good spot. I'm not going to put them chalked in for the Super Bowl. I've done it too many times already. They just broken my heart as a secondary team to root for. So they just, at this point, they just got to do it. They got to do it at some point. So we'll see what they do. This team is a team that I think has broken many hearts for millennia, ever since the Rex Ryan days. The New York Jets, they are in a transition period where I probably said this last season, but they look like they had a lot of promise, especially with the Dolphins doing good and like the Bills of this being like a crazy, crazy division. But major disappointment, a lot of overhaul and changes. You bring in Aaron Glenn. Um, Talk to me about like where you see this team and ceiling when you look at their schedule and their roster.
Yeah, you're pulling up their schedule. But overall, roster wise, it is an interesting team. So obviously, with quarterback change in any regard, I think it brings a lot of excitement to a team. Like, the past 2 years with Aaron Rodgers, there is just a bunch of question marks around this team where it's like, hey, if Aaron Rodgers hits, they're going to be a competitive team. I mean, he still did all right, but like just not enough to actually carry the team that I think in the way that the Jets hoped Aaron Rodgers would. Looking at their schedule, it seems moderately difficult. I mean, like for an average team in the league, I see this schedule being like maybe a 500-esque record. So I mean, you got like some easier game. You have like the Saints on here. You got the developing Panthers on here. You got the Cleveland with the whole quarterback situation. Week 1, you're going against Pittsburgh with, again, they got some of the question marks around there. So they got like a couple weaker caliber teams, I guess, that we're estimating on the schedule. But then you also you face the Bills twice. You face Tampa Bay, Denver's on here, Cincinnati's on here, Baltimore's on here. Yeah. And so, I mean, you got a couple tough games. So I could see this team maybe be going like 7 to potentially 10 wins. But the 10 is like if Justin Fields hits kind of thing. This is a very optimistic prediction. I'm a fan of Justin Fields. I've always wanted him to be successful. I think he played decent ball in Pittsburgh last season. So it's that. And then I'm also a huge fan of the Justin Fields Garrett Wilson connection back when, they played college ball together.
Ohio State.
Yeah. And so I think I feel like there'd be some semblance of chemistry between those two players. And of all else, Justin Fields just force feeding Garrett Wilson the football. I don't think you can go super wrong with that. I think he's an elite wide receiver. If we actually get him the ball, if they feed him the ball, I think we could end the season with Garrett Wilson in discussions of is he one of the best younger group of wide receivers in the league, in that same discussion with CeeDee Lamb, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, if Fields feeds him 150 targets this year. And so from that end, I'm potentially 7 to 10 wins. There's also that reality where Justin Fields just isn't him, and they win 4 games, which would be sad. But yeah.
I was laughing because I had the same exact win prediction, 7 to 10, and I just found it hilarious. I agree. When you look at their roster, it's oh, this is not as bad, but then they have the lead teams sprinkle randomly in the middle of the schedule. So they have a lot of teams at their level. So theoretically, they could win any matchup, but I would consider Tampa Bay better. There's a Denver. There's some teams where you could think the Jets should be able to beat because their defensive personnel is going to keep them in this game, but in these games. But I think they need a couple years for the new culture to set. They need a new culture build. When you look at back in 1997, interesting story actually. The Jets had finished 1-15 under Rich Kotite. And that's when Bill Parcells has come in. And there's a whole scandal with Bill Parcells and Bill Belichick becoming the coach of the Jets, Patriots, whole history behind it. Once Bill Parcells came on the Jets and completely changed the culture, that whole entire team didn't even change. And why am I bringing up Bill Parcells in the 2025 season preview? Because Aaron Glenn was actually coached under Bill Parcells when he played for the Jets. And the type of style and the fight this team will have will be very resemblant of that roster. You mentioned Justin Fields and Garrett Wilson. That's certainly a strength of this team. But I think what's going unnoticed is the amount of investments they made in the offensive line in recent years with Olaf Fashanu and then Armand Membu, on
Mhm.
top of Vera Tucker. And then
Mhm.
you have a three-headed monster with Brees Hall, Braylon Allen, and Isaiah Davis. I don't think enough people are talking about like how great their run game is going to be this year with a Justin Fields and the fact that they have a more mobile quarterback on offense and the type of style where they want to run it down their throat, play aggressive defense. You you hear Quentin Williams constantly complaining about the culture where like there was a lack of accountability and everything would wait until the meeting rooms and things like that. That's not how Aaron Glenn has treated it since training camp. That's not how Bill Parcells handled it. And I think you're going to see a difference in the culture. Now, it might not show up in the win loss record, but I definitely think this will be a better team moving forward at the end of the season
Mhm.
for where the team is at. They don't have the
Mhm.
personnel offensively yet as far as skills positions. Like I never loved the Allen Lazard fit, but bringing in Josh Reynolds helps culture wise. Then you have
Mhm.
Malachi Corley, you're expecting a lot of things. Ryan Smith, Mason Taylor, very promising prospects. It will take time for these guys to develop, but um, I think giving Justin Fields a nice opportunity where he wants to prove himself in a full-time role after kind of being screwed over in Pittsburgh. I think I think this is a team that will be like really nice to root for, honestly.
Mhm. Yeah, Lenny, I like what you said about the offensive line. Yeah, they've invested quite a bit in the offensive line, which is something I'm a huge fan of. Like you said, Olufashano, Armand Bamboo, Elijah Vera Tucker's there. Joe Tippmann was a second round pick 3 years ago or 2 years ago for them. And then they brought in, I think, John Simpson in free agency last season. So, like, they've properly invested in this offensive line, which I'm a huge fan of. Mason Taylor taken or pretty high up in the second round. I'm also a fan of. Um, yeah, Brees Hall, I'm a fan of. Braylon Allen kind of fizzled towards the end of last season, so hopefully he can bounce back. Isaiah Davis looked electric last season at the end of the year, so whether or not Allen plays good or not, I think Isaiah Davis is a great backup to have. Hopefully, yeah, we see Malachi Corley bounce back this year. He started off with decent snap count, and then he had the infamous fumble at the end zone play. And then after that, his snap count dropped. So it seemed like he kind of went to the dog pound after that. So hopefully, with a full off season, he's able to kind of reset and kind of like hopefully just kind of begin,
Recalibrate.
yeah, recalibrate pretty much. Because like you said, I'm not a huge fan of Alan Lazard, but ultimately you don't need guys like Josh Reynolds, Alan Lazard, Malachi Corley to like be the show of the offense when you got Garrett Wilson and Brees Hall. Those two guys allow it so that guys like Reynolds and Lazard to be able to make plays because they're not going to be double covered. They're not going to be schemed for like really at all. It's, it is the Garrett Wilson show, I think, going into this season. But yeah, I feel like you don't see it quite as much as well, but like I feel like their draft, I mean, just between this year and last year, feels stronger than like what the Bills have going in from last season and this season. Just with the fact that you have like Olu Fashanu and Armin Membo, Mason Taylor's a slotted starter, and then we know what Braylon Allen, Isaiah Davis, and Malachi Corley bring to the field. And so I'm just a fan of the draft. I'm a fan of the fact that they brought in a ton of free agents, just both starting and at depth position. So I think there'll be a competitive team. I like our 7-10 predictions. But unfortunately, I don't know if that gets them into the playoffs. Just with how competitive the AFC probably will be this upcoming year.
I mean, it's so difficult. You lose Devontae Adams, although you had him half a season, and then you're trying to. I think they're set up well for the future. A lot better
Mm-hmm.
future than the Bills currently, in like positions other than quarterback. You just it's just looking at the AFC and saying like, okay, where can the Jets realistically finish? I don't think the target should be wild card spot.
Mm-hmm.
The amount of teams that are fighting to get in. I think more realistically is can we get this team to have the right habits and sustain
Mm-hmm.
those habits for a full season? Because you're talking about more of a culture fit, and I think the wins will come. They're going to be in every game, but I think I think they need more personnel at the skill positions to kind of support Garrett Wilson and like Mason Taylor in the future because it's
Mm-hmm.
looking like those are the 1-2 receiving options right now. Um, and you want to maximize the window that Brees Hall and Garrett Wilson have on offense, and Quentin Williams on defense. So they did the right things, sending Gardner, Williams to contracts, but they need to build that culture in the locker room. So there is actually accountability.
Yeah, honestly though, I think if this team finishes after the bye week, they go like 6-2. I think that's a huge thing to go into the next season, which I think is possible because you look at the schedule as well. It's Cleveland, New England, Baltimore, Atlanta, Miami, Jacksonville, New Orleans, New England again, and Buffalo. Like, I feel like 6 wins is reachable within that 8-game lineup they have there. And so, like,
I think that's a tad bit optimistic. I think that would be their ceiling, but you're absolutely right. Like, obviously they go 6-2 in that stretch. That's a great sign for where they're headed.
Yeah, because I feel like Baltimore, Buffalo are the 2 teams I can feel like are for sure losses going for this team. But then it's like New England, Miami. I mean, like, these are like good. I think that these teams will be good. Like New England, Miami, Jacksonville, Atlanta. Like, they're good teams, but I don't know if I'm like putting them. They're not like the premier teams of the league, and so
they're not head and shoulders above the Jets. So they're winnable. They could win those games. They could lose those games. Like, it's anybody's game.
Yeah, and so just kind of with that culture reset you're talking about, I think that'd be a great thing for the Jets, even if they do end up just getting smoked most of the first half of the season.
Yeah. Obviously, like, if they finish strong like the Lions did, that's a great sign. Like all those years ago. So it's just a matter of like monitoring them towards the end of the season rather than the beginning, because I think the beginning is going to be a slow fall. So. All right. That brings us to the Miami Dolphins. This is a commonly very sizzling, sexy football team to watch, but the big bugaboo is being able to beat the elite teams when it matters within their own conference. And I think the easiest game to see is that wild card game or divisional game that you had against the Chiefs in minus 4-degree weather, and they seemingly were unequipped for that. You have Tyreek Hill on the wrong side of 30. You're hoping he stays with them past the season. Talk to me about, like, what are you looking for in the Dolphins? They've had so much of change going on.
Yeah. Dolphins are a tricky team, I think, to analyze properly. Just like everything, I think, just only resides on Tua staying healthy. Healthy Tua, I think, makes this a serviceable and competitive team. A Tua who missed 6 games like he did last season, this team does not sniff the playoffs. Like, I think that's just kind of what it is for this team ultimately. And it's like, because you're in a situation where you're like, oh, we'd almost like to move on from Tua and just hopefully get a healthier quarterback that can also play good football. But at the same time, I mean, you look at Tua, not like from 2023, so 2 seasons ago, where he stayed healthy all year. He threw for 4,600 yards, 29 touchdowns, and 14 picks. And you're like that version of healthy Tua, I think Dolphin fans and the team alike are very happy to have that kind of quarterback play, you know? But then last season, 11 games for 2,800 yards, 19 touchdowns, 7 picks, which is still good. But then it's like those 6 games that you miss are kind of busts. You look at 2022, 13 games, 21, 13 games, 2020 is rookie year, 10 games. And so it's like he's had in 5 years, he's had 1 full season. And you're like, if he could just stay healthy, I think this team could win 10 plus, but I just feel like it's so unlikely for him to be healthy just for this history that I'm like, almost similarly to the Jets, I think I put them at that 7 to 10 win range.
Yeah, I think they have an easier schedule than the Jets. So, like, you would think they would hit 11 to 12 wins and be right up with Buffalo, like as they were in seasons past. But I think the big thing is Tua's injury, because it's kind of unclear, like, if Zach Wilson is like an upgrade over the QB2 spot they've had with Skylar Thompson. Because personally, I was high on Skylar Thompson, but I think the type of scheme is just very it's hard to project. Like Tua was able to operate at, but like other schemes like would not be a good fit. So like throwing Wilson and Ewers as a rookie, like in those situations, I don't. I'm gonna lean on the pessimism side. Like
Hmm.
if they had to step up with a hurt Tua, so um, I would. I'd say the range is wider just because of the nature of like Tua getting hurt. So I would
Hmm.
just say 6 to 11 wins. That's and I know I bumped it up by two on either spectrum, one on either spectrum, but
Yeah.
it's really this team is hard to figure out. I think
Hmm.
the big thing to look at with them is for all the great outside zone running success they've had with Mostert, Achan,
Hmm.
Wilson, and years previous. I think these are alarming stats to point
Hmm.
out. And plus, one departure we didn't know is Teron Armstead.
Oh
Like
yeah.
he's retired. That's a big, big deal considering that they finished 31st last season. Oh, sorry. No, this is since 2022. Finished 31st in conversion rates on third and short and fourth and short plays. Um, in the red zone, they finished 31st in red zone touchdown percentage last season, and they finished last in success rate on runs against stacked boxes. So that's an issue. And then you have knowing that you're facing Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle on the opposite side as a defense, you're going to go too high every time, and they were not able to find run plays that were successful against that look inside
Hmm.
inside cadence. So like I think the big issue is like you're not going to put Tua on third and short and fourth and short situations because you're worried about the concussions
Hmm.
progressively getting worse every time he gets one, and
Hmm.
you don't want to put him in that scenario. So you have to play in the pistol and shotgun. It kind of limits your run plays, and they're not very effective at running those physical runs when their linemen are so used to winning outside zone. So I think they
Hmm.
have to change their philosophy where they cannot be so like schematic and sexy from a play design standpoint because McDaniel's really good at that. But for what these offensive line investments have done and putting a guy like Patrick Paul like in left tackle for the first time as a starter, you need to get them like off the ball attacking like and establishing like physicality because that is a big component of what was missing in years past. And I
Hmm.
think it's the only way they can kind of like transition this dilemma they have. So
Hmm.
when you see additions like Nick Westbrook or Kine, that's key to it. When you have like the investment in Alec Engold as fullback and continue to have him and then Farrell Brown, because Darren Waller's not a great running blocker. You're hoping these are the additions you make, but like you're hope like when you look at teams like Los Angeles and then like Kansas City, and then like Cincinnati, what they do best is they block and Detroit, most importantly Detroit, they block with their wide receivers and skill position weapons, and it's their best players that are good run blockers. San Francisco, like with George Kittle.
Hmm.
Miami doesn't have that situation because they have really good speed threats, but they're not great run blockers. So it's like, how
Hmm.
much does Farrell Brown, Alec Ingold, and Westbrook Akine elevate their roster from that department? Until they're able to address that, I don't trust them in a tight margin game with Kansas City if it's like Kansas City's up 20-17, 5 minutes to go. Um, and the Dolphins are trying to run the clock down to limit possessions, but also win the game at the last minute.
Hmm.
That is where it comes down to like that's an issue for this team.
Hmm. Yeah. I feel like this team will like over the next two seasons, I think we'll try to be competitive, but I think after that they might be really close to just kind of an overall rebuild of the team where I mean like Tyreek Hill, he's 31, right? And so it's like in 2 years, you're probably moved on from Tyreek Hill. If you're not winning it at all, you're like 2 years further down the line with Tua's contract. So he only has a year left on his deal. Uh let's see, you have Darren Waller who you just acquired, which I think is kind of cool. But again, he's an older player. It's going to take a while for him to get even good again. You trade back for Minka Fitzpatrick, who is He's still good, not in his prime that he was when he was with the Steelers, when they first traded him to the Steelers. And so it's like, I feel like you're in this window of, you have like 2 years to really try to win it all. I mean, especially just like how I said with the aging players. And then in year 3, if Tua really, if he can't stay healthy, you draft someone to kind of be like sit under Tua for that season. If Tua gets hurt that season, you have your rookie quarterback able to come in.
And you're hoping that's Ewers. Yeah, because they already made that investment in him, right? So you're hoping that's him. But like, if you get a higher talent, then like you take another
pick
crack
is
at it.
not that much of an investment, but like honestly, in 3 years, if Quinn Ewers is their guy, that'd be kind of crazy. But in 3 years, I'm assuming that it's a QB competition with Tua, Ewers, and whatever quarterback they draft if things aren't going great. But then I think I'm a huge fan of Jalen Waddle still. I think he's great to be the focal point as the veteran receiver at that point. And you got like guys, I mean, staples that you can't have on defense. Like I like Jalen Phillips. You're hoping Jason Marshall Jr. is kind of a stud there. Bradley Chubb is older-ish now. Maybe he's like an older veteran that you have. Tyrell Dodson, like he's already in his 60s. Like you got
Storm Duck is a great name, man. Sorry, total tangent.
Yeah, and then I think for this team as well, you're really hoping Chop Robinson can take the next step. He was drafted in the first round last season. He had an all right showing as a rookie. He put up 6 sacks last year, but then it wasn't good enough to the point where they ended up drafting Kenneth Grant to potentially be the starting D end. Maybe Chop is actually the starter into this season and Kenneth Grant sits behind for this year, but just the fact that you spent first round draft capital on another pass rusher when you already had drafted Chop Robinson last year, it's a lot of what's happening. So I think this year is really a huge tell on how the future will go for the Dolphins. If they suck this year, I think the rebuild starts sooner in terms of like offloading veteran talent. If they're competitive this year, I think they try to run it back once more the following season. And then if that still doesn't get them the win, then you're like, okay, what are we doing with some of these veteran players? But yeah.
I don't know. The reason why I'm so confused is because I think McDaniel's on the hot seat and he might be let go after the season.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's how much of a dilemma they're in.
Mm-hmm.
Because like I know Ewers was taken with the 7th round pick, but you don't make that move unless you're worried about Tua's health going forward. And like if they start out sucking, it's like you got nothing to lose by throwing them in there and then like investing high draft capital in the next quarterback coming up. Like I think they're tearing it down if this doesn't work. Like it's one of those things where like they have a limited ceiling with the way they built their roster. And they need like an identity change if it doesn't work. And that would suck because they let a lot of guys go, like Armstead you lost, like Holland, Fuller, Mostert, Janu Smith from last season. But I don't know. It's because like you look at their picks now, Ollie Gordon, completely different player than Achane. And I really like Ollie Gordon as a running back. Like he was one of the top backs in college football 2 years ago, but last season he had a down year and he fell in the draft. Like he's going to be a very, very valued asset for them. But like, it's just like the team has like 2 different identities right now, and it's like I have no idea what to expect out of them. Mm-hmm. They could be really, really good when Tua's healthy, but with the injuries, I get why they made the investments in the DN and stuff, and I just you can't. They're going to be one of the best teams in September, and then after that, I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, because I'm like in my head, a hypothetical situation. Tua goes down, which affects Achane's efficiency. Let's say Tyreek Hill doesn't have a bounce back year that everybody expects him to have. Darren Waller doesn't play to anyone's expectations, and all of a sudden, you're a bottom 10 team in the league, right? And let's say your pick is even top 5 at that stage. What's to stop you from trying to trade up and take Arch Manning? Like, I mean, if Arch Manning's available for you if you're a bottom 5 team in the league, like is that a move you make?
Oh, 100%.
Right? And so it's
100%.
like I feel like they're really one sucky season away from just tearing it all down, which is a shame for like how over the past like 4-ish years how exciting of a team this was to watch too.
Yeah, they're a confusing team where it's
Mm-hmm.
you don't know. I like Mike McDaniel a lot. I think it's a very creative caller, but it's kind of like a lesser chaotic team than like the Matt Nagy Bears when I look at them.
Mm-hmm.
Where like they have all these like super weapons on offense and like all these creative gadgets, but they can't put it all together yet because they're relying on some inconsistency at quarterback play.
Yeah.
Whether it's injury or like it's a very similar. It's a very similar feeling where they invest a lot in like high octane players, but
Mm-hmm.
they can't get over the humps and like win at
Yeah.
the margins when it matters most.
Yeah. And just like the worst part of this all, I think, is like, I mean, like with the quarterback situation, it isn't that Tua sucks as a quarterback. Like when he's healthy, like I said, literally the year before,
4,600 yards.
4,600 pass
That's
yards.
hard.
He balls, you know, but then it just like because when your quarterback sucks, you're like, okay, we'll give him one more year to see if he can figure things out at the quarterback position. After that, we're ready to draft our next guy. But then with the Dolphins, it's like, well, we know he knows how to play the quarterback position. He's really good at playing quarterback. It's just he misses like half the year basically with injuries plus like the rehab games where he's not fully 100% because you're trying to get him back on the field when he's like 80%, and so it's like like how and so it's a struggle.
That's the thing that sucks. And it's like the real solution is like have a viable backup that you trust. That would resolve a lot of these issues. But instead, who they trot out? Skylar Thompson from like the years past, and they had the Mike White. Like that was a good idea, but then you don't keep them, and now you're relying on Zach Wilson and Quinn Ewers to take out the front if things go south. And I love the Zach Wilson game against the Chiefs as the Jets. That gave me a lot of promise, but I'm not relying on that if I know I'm on the hot seat and I have a quarterback that can get injured at any moment. It's just too risky. So
yeah. So we'll see how they play. I hope Tua stays healthy. If he's healthy, they're on the upper echelon of, I think, being
Absolutely.
in playoff competitiveness. But we've seen so little of that it makes it difficult. Their schedule helps them the most, I think, though.
Right. So, I mean, there's two tenets here to summarize it. Tua's health kind of dictates how high they'll go. But then once they reach the playoffs, are these changes they made on the fringes enough for like to accentuate their strengths, but also have a counterpunch if they get into like a boxing match on the football field? That is going to be a big telltale sign. So there's kind of a two-stage process the Dolphins have to answer first. First one being the most important thing. Can they compete with a healthy Tua? So all the optimists is hoping to say yes, but with New England, there's a lot of things to think about. Drake May going to his second season, promising QB play, but you make a lot of adjustments here. You go the farm to get Milton Williams. That was key for them. Stephon Diggs, you add from the Texans. Morgan Moses, Robert Spillane, Cardinal Davis, Harold Landry. They spent a lot of money on free agents. And they got Garrett Bradbury. So, like, they invested, like, everywhere. New England used free agency to the moon. Where do you think they're going after a 4-win season last year?
Honestly, I think they take second place in this division.
Wow.
9-11 win team here.
Wow. That is bold words, Core.
I think some of I don't know. I'm a fan of Drake May. I think some of the hype last year was kind of overblown, but at the same time, I think what he did last season was really impressive in his limited time playing quarterback. I think one thing that a lot of people are underselling is his dual threat ability at the quarterback position. I don't think I'm assuming NFL teams will be able to scheme a lot more for that, but from a fan perspective, I don't think a lot of people pay attention to his ability as a rusher. It's like he honestly, I think he's the number 2 rushing, scrambling quarterback behind Jaden Daniels out of last year's draft class. Pretty easily. And I mean, like you said, they invested a ton in free agency here, getting guys that they can rely on. I mean, Stephon Diggs as an aging vet, I mean, he's still the wide receiver 1 on this team. I like Demario Douglas, Matt Collins is whatever. I like the Kyle Williams pick. Will Campbell, I was a huge fan of that draft pick. I like the Garrett Bradbury pick. Morgan Moses is all right. Milton Williams, like you said, great pick. Harold Landry, I'm a fan of. Robert Spillane, I like. They have Caleb Chasen as a backup pass rusher who's whatever. Carlton Davis, Christian Gonzalez, who I'm a huge fan of as well. So like they have a lot of young players here. And like people I don't know, like if you look at the games played between, so like Drake May, he played 13 games last season, and he had 421 rush yards. Bo Nix, who I think a lot of people said, he had a decent rushing upside in his 17 games, had 430 rush yards. And so you're like, you're expecting a potential like 600 plus rushing yard season from Drake May over the course of an entire year, which I think is a really underrated rushing or just underrated metric to have as for the Patriots here, which I think will surprise catch a lot of people off guard going into this season. And then you look at his pass stats from last year too, and you're like, I mean, he had a decent amount of touchdowns, which was exciting. But then you see the 10 interceptions, which I think is the biggest concern for a lot of people. But then you look at the wide receivers they had last season, and it's like Demario Douglas, who's still good, he's still the number 2 guy, is the guy there. But then you have Jalen Polk as your number 3, your top draft pick. Whereas now Jalen Polk is listed as wide receiver 7 on this depth chart. So last year's wide receiver 3 is wide receiver 7 this year. And then you have Kendrick Bourne last season, who is now listed as wide receiver 6 going into this year. And so it's like, what did you really have for Drake May last season? And so I think that's exciting. I'm a huge fan of the Trayvon Henderson pick. Think he'll supersede Ramondre Stevenson sooner than later going into this year as well. So like they have a lot of pieces they brought in the free agency. I think a lot of rookies plus second-year players that I think can make a difference for this team too.
I get what you're saying, and looking at some of the rushing stats, it's pretty surprising. He's almost averaging 8 yards like on the season last year, which is incredible. And if he's able to tap into that piece of his game, like as efficiently as he did last year, like in the scheme of things, I think that should be something that's looked at for sure. I look at the pieces around him, and I know they invest a lot in the trenches on both sides, but I still don't think the skill position players are where they need to be to elevate what Drake May needs to elevate to. So I probably had them at the same levels like Carolina and Atlanta like this season. And they have them both on the schedule. So when I'm looking at the schedule, I'm like, ooh, this is pretty nice. They have a really nice schedule, and I could easily see how you got to 8, 9, 11 wins. But I can't. I know their line is at 8.5 wins, but I can't put them higher than that. I think they're going to be somewhere between 5 to 8 wins, just from the standpoint that you have so many free agents on your defense. Like you have 5, like in the starters, 5 new starters, 3 new like backups, and then 3 new starters on up. That's a lot of turnover on a team. You're bringing in a new coach. I get it. Rabel was on the top of my list for head coaching candidates. No, I mean I'm really happy with Ben Johnson on the Bears, but I really wanted Mike Vrabel because I knew what I was getting at, and he tends to get the most out of his players. So I just don't know if it's going to happen year one, and I think it might take a couple seasons for them to really be like 9-11 wins. That's a jump for me.
Yeah, but at that rate, a couple seasons to be a 9-11 win team, I think you're moving on from Drake May then, like in
Great
some capacity,
trajectory.
you know. And so it's
Yeah.
like because like you also look at like because I mean I think Drake May is a good talent. I think he's very talented. I think he does a lot better than what he does last season. And from that perspective, like I mean, you look at the superstar quarterbacks of the past couple of drafts who have been able to pretty much do a worst to first type of shift for some of these teams. Like, you look at what the Commanders had last season and what the Broncos had last. People are saying Broncos last season had the worst wide receiver room in the league, had the worst supporting cast for a quarterback, like literally ever, and like just Bo Nix playing as good as he did helped elevate the. I think a lot of things are undersold with the team as well. I mean, looking back, but
Their defense was insane.
Mhm. Yeah, and like, but then I mean, look at the offense. The offense was just able to sustain drives. I mean, like the stats were similar to quarterbacks of the past, but you look at just the fact that the Browns are able to sustain the drives for longer and they're able to execute better in the red zone, which I think really helped elevate the team. And I think Drake May could have a similar effect with the fact that, like, sure, you're not the hugest fan of the supporting cast. Stephon Diggs is aging, but like Demario Douglas has been good, you know, for the past two seasons, especially as a fifth round pick or whatever he was taken. Kyle Williams has decent draft capital behind him. Keyshawn Boutte did better at the back half of the season here. I remember I looked up his stats and I was like, holy cow, his end of season was really good. I almost picked him up in Dynasty. Here, let me pull up his stats real quick.
I'm looking at his game log right now. He ended last game, Buffalo, 7 receptions, 117 yards, 1 touchdown. Like Buffalo, he went off in both games.
Mhm.
Like his first game against Buffalo, 7 receptions, 95 yards, and a touchdown. Like,
yeah, but like outside of that,
the flashes there.
Yeah, but outside of the Miami game, like he was getting 5 to 7 targets a game from week 8 on. And then like he didn't play like the first like 3 games of the season. Week 40 had 23% snap count. Oh, my screen closed. Boop. Boop. Okay. But then like week 6 on, he got that 80% snap count. And like he ended up putting up a decent season. So like, I mean, I don't expect him to be some crazy superstar by any means, but like, I mean, you look at what he did his rookie year, or not rookie year, but his first freshman year, his early years at LSU, he balled out. And so we might be able to see some of that potential just with how strong his season ended last year. And so like, I think in a way you like, I'm not saying this is some elite wide receiver supporting cast group for Drake May going to the season, but I think if Drake May plays up to the level that we kind of saw with Bo Nix and Jaden Daniels last season in some capacity, I think that a lot of these guys that we're maybe underselling right now kind of have those surprise years of like, wow, Cortland Sutton actually balled out and could be a true wide receiver one. Marvin Mims back half of the season was a real threat, you know, to teams. And it was, you know, and then like just other depth pieces of the Broncos looked really good. You look at the Commanders last season, obviously Terry McLaurin was the superstar there. But then you look at, I feel like a lot of the other pieces behind him kind of got a piece of something, you know, with just playing good for like Diami Brown last season. Based off his work, he got a $10 million guaranteed contract with the Jaguars. Like, the good quarterback elevates some of these guys to these crazier contracts. And like Drake May, if he does play good football, like Bo Nix and Jaden Daniels, especially just now that he has a full offseason, he's going into this year being the starter, not competing with Jacoby Brissett. I think overall they should be a better team than the Dolphins and the Jets, which is why I have them at that 9-11 win.
I see what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
I just think also the culture thing where you have like the falling out between Kraft and Belichick when that had
Mhm.
happened, and then the Gerard Mayo experiment not working. You're trying to add stability with Mike Vrabel, and there's nothing against Mike Vrabel.
Mhm.
Um, it's just it's going to take time to establish that culture with the amount of changes they've had. So I think they're headed in the right direction. There's a lot of promise that you laid out with Drake May. Um,
Mhm.
I think for them to achieve the heights that you have laid out, they have to integrate everybody on the team. I get it. There's May, and there's a lot of promise in some of these skill position players that I might be overlooking. But Stephon Diggs' health is going to matter.
Mhm.
All these new additions on the defense are going to matter. Like Mike Vrabel being a defensive guy, I think will help a lot with that. But that's a lot to like establish a system around and like get them playing well. The offense might do completely great, but that defense needs to be consistent.
Mhm.
And I think the time to integrate both might cause them to have slow starts, but I think for Patriots fans, that's a win. That's still a win. Like the win here is like get Drake May to get better and better as the season gets along. And if you're above 500 come November, make a push for the playoffs. I think that's all Patriots fans could ask for. They've had back-to-back 4-win seasons, and just because you don't have 9 wins this season, I don't think that's a loss. I think I think as long as you're taking steps in the right direction with this team, they have a lot of young guys and additions they've made this past offseason. And I think integrating them and making sure everybody's getting better from September to October to November should be the focal point. And then I think the year's jump because I think with CJ Stroud, Jaden Daniels, and like Bo Nix, those don't happen very often. Like just ask Caleb Williams, the amount of turnover that's had to happen over the past couple seasons. Just ask like Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, the kind of career trajectory they've had to have. I think I think having those expectations for Drake May's team based on how he and the wide receivers have performed is kind of underselling the full process of what it takes for a full team to operate together. And the only reason I say that is looking at the Patriots culture when Belichick was there, it required everybody on defense playing on a string, everybody on offense doing the little things right. And I think Rabel, being a Belichick's disciple, is trying to get back to doing that. But it's one of those things that's going to take time to get there. So that's kind of why I'm pushing back a little bit on the wins. But I think they're in a great situation. I'm rooting the best for Drake May. I think he can get better and better and better. Um, but there might be some things outside of his control from a team perspective that are going to kind of limit their ceiling from hitting that.
Mhm. Oh, so what is your prediction for their just their win range?
I think because they're on par with a lot of teams they're facing, I'm gonna have to say 6 to 8 wins. Like,
Mhm.
I wouldn't be surprised if they hit 9, but it's gonna be one of those like they're gonna be in every game.
Mhm.
But like with Pittsburgh, they could be. I would put Pittsburgh over them right now because they already have a culture established. I think Carolina and Atlanta are ahead of schedule in the rebuilding process than they are. Tampa Bay, Cincinnati, Buffalo, Baltimore, I think are head and shoulders easily. And
Mhm.
it kind of depends on how they do in the division with the Jets and Miami, because all these three teams outside of Buffalo are kind of in a similar situation where they're either
Mhm.
rebuilding or like retooling and trying to get the right culture in the building. And depending on who wins the series between those three teams will kind of dictate how far they'll finish. I think the
Mhm.
Patriots are slightly behind right now, but being behind a 7 to 10 win and 6-11 range team is not that far off. I think they're
Mhm.
right there.
Cool. Cool. Yeah. Decided for you probably I don't know if you've been looking at the screen, but I added like our win predictions at the bottom too. So I was like, it'd be kind of cool to see what our predictions were last season for some of these teams. Because I forget, but
I don't want to look at my Jets prediction, that's for sure, because I probably was higher on them than most
high
people.
key, we both probably had the Jets like I feel like, was it last season that we kind of talked about like the Jets' depth issues or something? Maybe we both kind of changed our predictions. Like we started off kind of high and then like, wait, the Jets, maybe we don't like. And then we switched
I remember complaining about Lazard a lot and like all the Roger fanboy picks and stuff like that. So.
Yeah, because I think initially you were like, oh, like I think 12 wins is doable or something, and then I was like, well, actually, I hate the depth behind Garrett Wilson once he's down, or I don't know. And then Breece Hall backup suck. Aaron Rodgers backup sucks. Will he even bounce back? The O-line, a lot of young talent. We don't know. And then you're like, actually, yeah, I think so. And then I
could have been on the ayahuasca. Let's call it to that.
Yeah, but I have it here now, so we'll have the receipts for for after the season finishes, and we can laugh at how wrong we were or how right we were, and how much smarter I am sometimes. I'm just kidding.
Okay, all right, Mr. Bonex Truther over here.
Yeah.
Alrighty, that will do it for us. That's the AFC East. You can follow our Instagram page at amon.a.mission, YouTube channel Amon A Mission. Next topic, favorite division. Don't like how all the teams did so well besides the Bears because we decided to win 10 straight. Lose 10 straight. We should have won 10 straight, but stupid Commanders Hail Mary. I'll never get that out of my head. It's burned in my memory. Yeah, that should be a fun topic. Probably a lot of ranting next week, but until then, you guys take it easy, and we'll see you later.
Yep. Peace.